I just manifested $1 million using this secret thought. And I want you to know that the very moment I truly accepted this thought as real, the entire world began to move for me. It did not happen because of hustle. It did not happen because of strategy. It happened because I assumed the truth of what I desired and rested in the feeling of its fulfillment. There is a secret to creation, a truth hidden in plain sight. And when you finally grasp it, your life will never be the same again. The mind is the master key. Your reality is not out there. It is within you. Everything that appears outside is nothing more than a reflection of your inner state. I did not beg the universe. I did not plead with fate. I did not wait for luck. I changed one thought, one core belief, one image within myself, and the riches flowed toward me like a river released from a dam. This is the great secret of manifestation. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you are conscious of being. This $1 million did not come as a surprise. It did not catch me off guard. I was not shocked, nor was I overly excited, because long before it arrived, I had already lived with it in my imagination. I had already walked the halls of abundance. I had already spent it in my mind, tasted the luxury, felt the power, and rested in the knowing that it was already mine. The world had no choice but to echo my inner world. This is what I mean when I say I used a secret thought. It was not a random daydream, but a disciplined act of assumption. You see, the secret thought was simple, yet divine. It was this: I am already wealthy. Not I will be, not I hope to be, not I wish, but I am. I held that phrase in the silence of my soul until it became the only truth I accepted. I would rise in the morning with it. I would go about my day wearing it like a garment. I would lay my head on the pillow at night, feeling as if the money was already sitting in my account. And because I felt it as true, it became true. Now let me tell you something that most people overlook. The world will try to contradict your assumption. Your senses will lie to you. Your bank account may still say zero, but the spirit within you must say, I am a millionaire now. You cannot afford to wait for evidence. You must become the evidence. Feel the reality now, not later. Later never comes. All manifestation occurs in the eternal now. I remember clearly walking down the street one day with not $1 in my pocket, but with this powerful thought burning inside me. I have $1 million. I repeated it silently, not with desperation, but with gratitude. I imagined checking my phone and seeing the balance. I imagined the letters from the bank. I imagined the phone calls congratulating me. I didn't try to force the how. I only occupied the state of the what. And as I did this over and over, something strange began to happen. The world started to change around me. Opportunities appeared out of nowhere. People I had never met before were suddenly drawn to me. Ideas poured into my mind with such clarity and urgency that I couldn't help but act on them. But even more than that, my energy shifted. I began to think like a millionaire, speak like a millionaire, walk like a millionaire. And this is the secret many fail to understand. Your inner state magnetizes your outer reality. When you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you are not pretending. You are planting a seed in the garden of the divine. That seed must grow. The $1 million you desire is already yours in another dimension, waiting for you to align with it. And the only tool you need for this alignment is the power of assumption. As Neville once said, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and continue in that assumption until it hardens into fact. I spoke to myself daily, inwardly, silently, like a prayer of certainty. I am rich. I am wealthy. I am abundant. I am already living in overflow, and I meant it. I did not look to the outer world for confirmation. I looked only within. The world, being nothing but a mirror, eventually had to reflect that inner truth back to me. One day the call came. A deal I had worked on months ago, which I had completely forgotten, suddenly closed. And the payment, exactly $1 million, not a penny more or less. My thought had created it. My imagination had sculpted it. My belief had summoned it. I laughed, not because I was surprised, but because I knew it was done the moment I accepted it as already mine. The real work is invisible. No one saw me cultivating this thought. No one heard my inner conversations. No one watched as I revised old beliefs, as I transformed lack into luxury in the laboratory of my mind. And yet, that was where the million was born. Not in the marketplace, not in the meeting room, but in my inner sanctuary. Imagination is not a toy. It is a divine instrument. The great men and women of history, those who seemed to bend reality, all knew this. They did not react to life. They created it. They lived from the end. They saw themselves as already having the thing they desired and moved through life in accordance with that inner knowing. I did the same, and you can too. But you must be willing to ignore the facts. You must be willing to trust the unseen. You must dare to claim what no one else can see. This is the essence of faith. Faith is not passive. Faith is a creative act. It is the ability to remain loyal to the vision, even when everything outside says otherwise. When I held that secret thought, I am already wealthy, I didn't say it hoping it would happen. I said it knowing it was done. There is no power outside of your own consciousness. Everything begins and ends in you. Your thoughts are not idle. They are builders of worlds. And the thought you persist in will eventually become the house you live in. Persist in the thought of wealth, and wealth must find you. Persist in lack, and lack must remain. It is law. Do not worry about how long it takes. Time is only a servant of belief. The moment you truly feel that it is already yours, the clock begins to conspire in your favor. In my case, the million came fast, but it came because I was unwavering. I did not waver in belief. I did not shift when reality showed me delay. I remained still, in the state of the wish fulfilled. There is a scripture that says, "Be still and know that I am God." That stillness is the silence of assumption. It is the peace that comes when you no longer seek but claim. I claimed it. I lived from it. I rested in it, and then it came. Not because I chased it, but because I became it. Every day people ask me how I did it. I tell them the same thing. I believed. I assumed. I persisted. I lived inwardly in the state of already having. The million was a reflection of my inner reality. And the secret thought, it was not a chant, not a mantra, not a wish. It was a declaration. I already have it. If you want to manifest anything, be it money, love, health, success, this is the path. Begin by imagining the end. Step into the version of you that already has it. Speak from that version. Think from that version. Walk and breathe and act as though it is done. Not in arrogance, but in divine confidence. The world will bow to your conviction. You are the operant power. The universe is not outside of you. It is you. And it listens not to what you want, but to what you are. I was a millionaire long before the money arrived. I had felt it, believed it, lived it. The check was only the evidence of an inner shift. This is the way of the mystic. This is the way of the conscious creator. Do not doubt your power. Do not think you are less than any man or woman who has walked this earth. You were made in the image of the creator. Your thoughts create. Your feelings are fuel. Your assumptions are prayers. Choose them wisely. I chose mine, and it brought me wealth. You can choose yours today, and it will bring you whatever you desire. The question is not whether you can manifest. You are already manifesting every moment. The only question is, what are you manifesting? Choose now to manifest abundance. Choose now to live in the thought that it is already done. Feel the joy of it now. Hear the applause, smell the richness, taste the freedom. Dwell in that state, and the world will conform. When I say I just manifested $1 million using this secret thought, I am not speaking metaphorically. I am telling you a truth. The secret thought was, I am already what I desire to be. And once that thought became my dominant inner conversation, the universe bowed before it. And as I continued to live from this place of inner wealth, it was as though life itself began to rearrange its furniture to accommodate the new me. People I hadn't spoken to in years reappeared with opportunities. Emails came offering business proposals, joint ventures, investments. But I didn't feel surprised. I felt aligned. Because everything that came was simply the echo of a reality I had already entertained within myself. You must understand this. Reality is not solid. It is fluid. It bends to the assumptions you hold. When I said I am wealthy, the world, though at first unmoved, had to eventually comply. That is the law. The outer world is a shadow. The inner world is the light that casts it. The moment I truly embodied the feeling of abundance, the shadow had no choice but to take the shape of wealth. You do not need to convince anyone else. You do not need their permission. You don't even need the approval of your past self. All you need is a new assumption. That is the key. Your past does not matter. Your history, your struggles, your mistakes. They are irrelevant to the power of your now. In this moment, you can adopt a new thought, a secret thought, one that only you know, one that you nurture in the silence of your own heart. And the most miraculous thing is this: once you truly believe, you no longer chase. That's the beauty of assumption. It allows you to rest, not in apathy, but in knowing. The kind of rest that a pregnant woman has, knowing the seed has taken root, and life is on its way. She does not rush it. She does not panic. She rests because she knows. That is how you must be with your desires. Rest in the knowing. Rest in the awareness that what you seek is already seeking you, because it is already you. There were moments where doubt tried to creep in. Of course, the world will test your inner conviction. But each time doubt knocked on the door, I answered with belief. I returned to the state. I closed my eyes and imagined once again the feeling of $1 million being mine. I felt the texture of that reality. I saw the smile on my face, the relief, the joy, the expansion. And I stayed there until it felt natural again. That is the key. Making the wish fulfilled feel natural. Not magical. Not far away. Natural. One of the greatest secrets Neville Goddard shared was that feeling is the secret. Not words, not effort. Feeling. And not just any feeling, but the feeling of the wish fulfilled. That is what I gave myself. Every single day. Not by force but through quiet alignment. Through faith in the unseen. Through loving the vision more than the present facts. If you want to change your life, stop trying to change the world. Change your conception of yourself. Change the story you tell silently to your own soul. I stopped saying I'm broke, or I'm struggling. I stopped identifying as someone who lacked. I became wealthy inwardly long before the world agreed with me. And that identity, that inner conviction, was what manifested the $1 million. And here's something else. The money came easily, without struggle, without pain. Because my vibration was not one of resistance. I was not trying to get rich. I already was, within. So the outer simply caught up. There was no anxiety, no clinging, no hustle, only a calm, clear knowing. It is done. The money was simply the natural consequence of the self I had assumed. Others around me began to notice the change, not just in my bank account, but in my energy. I no longer moved with fear or scarcity. I moved with the elegance of someone who knows, the kind of elegance that cannot be faked. It is born from inner authority, not outer approval. And when people asked, "How did you do it?" I would smile and say, "I believed it first." You do not manifest what you want. You manifest who you are. I became wealth. I lived in wealth. I breathed it. Not in numbers but in awareness. I saw myself as the person who already had the thing. And because I was faithful to that version of me, the world bowed. That is the essence of all creation. The world becomes what you believe yourself to be. It may take time for the outer to reflect it. But if you persist, it must. That is law. Your current circumstances are nothing but old thoughts congealed into form. They are the smoke from an old fire. But you are lighting a new fire now. With every thought, every feeling, every silent assumption. I tell you now, with all the certainty of someone who has seen it work, you can be, do, and have anything, but you must begin with imagination. See it, feel it, live from it. Walk through the day as if it were already true. Speak less of your current conditions and more of your inner conviction. No one else has to understand it. They don't need to approve. They will see the fruits soon enough. Let me say this. I did not need to visualize for hours. I did not need to chant for days. All I needed was one powerful moment of belief, and then to return to that state as often as possible. That is all. A few seconds of true assumption outweighs 1,000 hours of wishful thinking. The secret is not effort. The secret is surrender. Surrender to the truth that it is already done. Your imagination is the doorway. Your assumption is the path. And your feeling is the engine that carries you there. Do not delay your dream by waiting for evidence. Be the evidence. Be the one who carries the seed of a new world inside. Water it with belief. Nurture it with faith. And then step back and let the universe do what it always does, respond to your state. There is no distance between you and your desire, except in your mind. Close that gap. Bridge it with imagination. Dwell in the end. And when doubts arise, return to the secret thought. I am already that which I desire to be. Say it with love. Say it with reverence. Say it until it feels true. And then say no more, because it is done. So I continued, not with force, but with certainty. I no longer checked the physical world for signs. It was no longer necessary. I knew the harvest was coming because I had planted the seed in faith. There was no doubt left in me, only the quiet expectation that all I had imagined must come to pass. Not because of luck, not because I was chosen, but because I chose myself. I chose to believe in the reality I desired rather than the reality I saw. The world outside is yourself pushed out. Every event, every conversation, every coincidence is just the mirror of your inner assumptions. So when I received that call, when I saw the wire transfer with my name on it and a balance of $1 million, I didn't jump in disbelief. I exhaled. I smiled. I whispered, of course, because I had already received it within. The moment I accepted the $1 million inwardly, the outer had no choice but to comply. What most people miss is the simplicity of this truth. We are taught to believe in effort, in struggle, in external validation. But the true creative act is internal. The feeling is the secret. The thought is the seed. And your willingness to persist in that thought, despite what the senses report, is what causes it to harden into fact. Most people waver. They try for a moment, then look around and see no change, and abandon the state. But manifestation belongs to the persistent, the faithful, the bold. My faith was not in the bank, not in the stock market, not in a business partner. My faith was in the unseen reality I held within. And this inner world, rich, abundant, alive, was more real to me than anything else. I walked the streets, knowing I was already wealthy. I looked at my modest surroundings, and saw, in my mind, the grand life that was already unfolding. This wasn't denial. It was creative control. I was not rejecting reality. I was replacing it with something greater, more beautiful, and entirely mine. You have that power right now. In this very moment, you can adopt a new thought, a secret thought, one that contradicts the facts, but aligns with your desires. And if you live in that thought long enough, if you breathe life into it with your attention and your emotion, the world will conform. It must, because the law is unbreakable. Whatever you believe yourself to be, you become. There were nights when I would lie in bed and replay scenes in my mind, not the scenes of the day, but the scenes I desired to experience. I would imagine walking into my bank, shaking the hand of my financial advisor, hearing the words, "You're doing extremely well." I would smile inwardly, not trying to make it happen, but enjoying the feeling that it already had. That is the art. Enjoying the assumption, not rushing it, not straining, just resting in it, like you would in a beautiful dream. And then, like water finding its path, life began to make way for the assumed reality. Deals came together. Ideas came through dreams. Unexpected channels opened. And all I did was follow the flow, not in anxiety but in peace, because I knew the truth. The $1 million didn't appear by accident. It was born the moment I changed my inner conversation. It was drawn to me by the law of resonance, like attracts like. I became wealth in consciousness, and wealth had to appear in form. This is not magic. It is law. The same law that governs gravity, governs creation. You reap what you sow. Not in the outer world, but in the inner realm of thought and feeling. So wealth and wealth will grow. So doubt, and doubt will flourish. You must become a master gardener of your mind. Weed out the thoughts of fear, of lack, of limitation, and plant the seeds of power, of confidence, of abundance. Tend to them daily with assumption and imagination, and then trust the process. People often ask me, what if it doesn't work? To them I say that thought alone is your only obstacle. The law cannot fail. The only failure is disbelief. The only delay is doubt. You must be ruthless with your mind. The same way you brush your teeth every day, you must brush your thoughts clean. You must polish your inner speech until it reflects only what you desire. The beautiful truth is, it becomes easier with practice. The more you dwell in the end, the more natural it feels. Eventually, the assumption becomes your reality. Not just in imagination, but in fact. That's how it happened for me. What began as an inner whisper became a full-blown symphony in my life. The thought, "I am already wealthy," went from being a secret affirmation to a lived truth. You do not have to see the whole path. You do not need to know how it will unfold. You only need to know what you want, and assume that it is already yours. The universe will take care of the rest. It will orchestrate people, events, and circumstances in ways you cannot predict. But your role is sacred: to hold the end, to live from the end, and to persist until the end becomes real. I remember the first purchase I made with that money. It wasn't extravagant. It wasn't flashy. It was a simple gift for someone I loved. And as I handed it to them, tears in their eyes, I realized the million wasn't just about wealth. It was about freedom. Freedom to give. Freedom to expand. Freedom to live as the truest version of myself. That is the real prize. The money is a symbol. The consciousness behind it is the treasure. Now I speak to you not as someone who is special or different. I am you. I was once where you are. I struggled. I doubted. I wondered if I would ever escape the cycle of lack. But I found the key. And the key was inside me all along. It was the secret thought, the divine assumption, the sacred idea that I already am. You can begin now. Close your eyes. See it, feel it, believe it. And when the world whispers that it's not true, smile and return to your secret thought. Hold it like a treasure. Guard it like a flame. Nurture it like a seed. And watch how quickly the invisible becomes visible. Because when you change your inner world, your outer world must follow. Not maybe, not if, but absolutely. In perfect timing, in perfect ways. I didn't chase the million. I didn't force the process. I simply decided who I was, and the universe had to agree. The truth is, the moment I decided, the whole universe responded with an echo that shook the walls of my old beliefs. It felt as if the heavens themselves moved to align with my new identity. And this was not metaphor. It was law in motion. Life became a mirror of my inner clarity. And from that day forward, I knew something that no one could take from me, that I am the creator, that every event, every experience, is drawn to me by the self I assume to be. I began to understand why Neville emphasized so deeply the power of remaining loyal to an unseen reality. Because the world, when faced with someone who refuses to doubt, must shift. It must yield. It must remake itself to fit the assumption being held. This is not philosophy. This is not hope. This is the mechanics of consciousness. And you too can wield it the moment you choose to. Every time I encountered a challenge, I didn't react. I returned. I returned to the inner state, the inner wealth, the inner knowing. I didn't argue with appearances. I revised them. I rewrote them. I replaced them with the truth I had chosen to accept. And each time life transformed. Not because I fought the old, but because I faithfully embraced the new. The secret thought that changed everything was never really about money. It was about identity. It was about claiming the truth of who I am, despite what I see. It was about understanding that consciousness is the only reality. And what I accept in consciousness must become my experience. I realized that I am not the effect. I am the cause. And from that cause I began to speak, to walk, to live. The $1 million was just one expression of this truth. It was a symbol, a mirror held up to the inner richness I chose to dwell in. And once it manifested, I knew if this can come, so can anything. And I tell you now, if it happened for me, it can and will happen for you. But you must be willing to stop reacting and start creating. You must be willing to think independently of your current reality and live from a greater one. This is the sacred work. This is the divine art. To persist in a state of fulfillment until the world bends in your favor. To love your vision more than your history. To make the invisible more real than what is visible. The outer world may try to distract you with delay, but your imagination, if fed with faith, will always outlast time. It will always win. So I continued in this state, not once, not twice, but daily. I became the person who had, not the person who hoped. And I guarded that inner assumption like a priceless jewel. I spoke less about what I wanted, and more about what I had, not to impress others, but to impress it upon my soul. And in doing so, I reprogrammed the very core of my reality. Doors opened where there were none. People helped me without knowing why. Events unfolded that defied logic. But I did not attribute these things to luck. I knew they were the outpicturing of my thought, the very thought I had nurtured and protected and breathed life into. That is why when I say I just manifested $1 million using this secret thought, I mean it literally. I say it now not to boast, but to remind you of your power. You have the same ability. You can shift your identity today. You can speak a new reality into being. But you must be consistent. You must become so loyal to your assumption that nothing, not doubt, not delay, not denial, can shake you from it. Because when you persist in the state of the wish fulfilled, when you live as though it's already done, when you walk in quiet, unwavering confidence, life responds. People change. Circumstances change. The world shifts. It must. That is the law. And that is the truth that set me free. So I continued walking this path, not as someone waiting, but as someone who had already arrived. And that made all the difference. When you live from the end, your actions take on a different quality. You no longer move with anxiety or haste. You move with ease. You speak with authority. You carry yourself with an energy that compels the world to mirror back your inner knowing. That is exactly what happened to me. The moment I changed who I was in consciousness, the money, the people, the conditions, all changed accordingly. I understood now what Neville meant when he said, dare to believe in the reality of your assumption and watch the world play its part relative to its fulfillment. Every part of my life began to dance in perfect rhythm with that assumption. I wasn't trying to control people or events. I didn't need to. They played their roles as if they had rehearsed them 1,000 times. The person who sent the payment, the opportunity that led to the deal, the timing of it all, it was beyond anything I could have orchestrated. But that's the beauty of this divine process. You are not the one doing. It is being done through you. Once you allow the state to take over your being. What I wish to tell you now, more than anything, is that this power is already yours. Not someday. Not if you meditate for years. Not if you read 100 books. Right now. This very instant. The only question is, will you claim it? Will you dare to assume something higher? Will you let go of what has been and occupy what can be? Most people live in memory. They live in the loop of past failures, disappointments, and stories of limitation. But manifestation doesn't come from memory. It comes from imagination. It is imagination that creates. It is imagination that births realities. And I chose to imagine differently. That is what changed my life. I chose to imagine myself as already rich, already provided for, already whole, and the universe obeyed. This was not a hopeful daydream. It was a deliberate relocation of identity. I moved my awareness out of lack and into abundance. I changed the address of my consciousness, and reality forwarded the blessing to my new self. That's how real it is. You change who you are in consciousness, and the world follows. It has no other choice. I used to think I had to earn abundance. I used to think it had to be justified, deserved, fought for. But I now know the truth. Abundance is not something to earn. It is something to embody. You become one with it, and it appears. You align with it in feeling, and it must express. The outer is only ever reflecting what you accept as true. This is not belief in a vague sense. This is the assumption of an entirely new identity. I didn't just believe I could be wealthy. I believed I already was. And that belief, that secret thought, became my most prized possession. I protected it, honored it, worshipped it. I let it lead me through the day, into the night, and back into my dreams. And that loyalty, that inward persistence, brought forth a world beyond what I once imagined. You see, the secret isn't the money. The secret isn't the method. The secret is who you are being, who you believe yourself to be, in the silence, when no one is watching. That's what's creating your world. I changed that, and everything changed with it. Not because I deserved it more than anyone else. Not because I was special. But because I was willing to think a new thought, a secret thought, one that felt too good to be true at first, one that contradicted everything my past had told me, one that dared to say, I already have what I desire. Once I believed that, Everything began to move. The law began to operate with precision. Life rearranged itself to match my assumption, not slowly, not randomly, but with a grace that only divine intelligence could orchestrate. I stepped into a rhythm that was always there, waiting for me to recognize that I had been the conductor all along. I was no longer begging for abundance. I was being abundance. I no longer needed to chase success. I had become success, and in becoming, all the doing became effortless. Inspired action arose naturally. The right calls came at the right times. Resources flowed. People helped. The universe conspired, not against me but for me, because I finally aligned with my own truth. Now each day I wake up in gratitude, not just for the money, but for the revelation that brought it. I understand now that the greatest gift wasn't the $1 million. It was the awakening of the creative power within me. It was the realization that I need nothing outside of myself to be whole, to be free, to be rich. That power, the power of assumption, of imagination, of inner conviction, is the greatest wealth anyone can possess. And once you have it, everything else follows. So this journey continued, not as a process of acquisition, but of embodiment. I was no longer seeking transformation. I was living it. Each moment, each breath became a testament to the inner change I had accepted as real. I didn't need to see numbers to feel wealthy. I didn't need proof to know it was mine. The assumption was enough. The feeling was enough. That inner conviction became my home. And from that dwelling place, I began to see the whole of life rearrange itself to fit my newly claimed identity. Even when doubts tried to return, I didn't resist them. I simply remembered who I am. I remembered the power I held and the truth I had discovered, that my imagination, when felt as real, is more powerful than the facts I once believed in. I didn't have to argue with the world anymore. I didn't need to fight or prove or hustle. All I had to do was persist in the state that matched my desire. Every great thing that appeared in my life after that moment came through this same method, not from effort, but from alignment. Not from pleading, but from assuming. And each time I did, it became easier to trust the invisible, because I had lived it. I had seen it respond, not once, but repeatedly. And what I once called a secret thought became a way of life, a permanent inner conversation, a knowing beyond logic, a faith that didn't need sight to sustain it. I can't tell you the exact moment the money arrived because in truth, it had arrived long before I saw it with my eyes. It had been born the moment I claimed it in imagination. What the world called a miracle, I called a result. The natural outcome of remaining true to the unseen reality within me. I no longer saw time as a barrier, or reality as something outside of my control. I knew deeply, completely, that everything in my life came from within. It had always been that way. Once you know this, truly know this, there's no going back. You can't unknow your power. You can't return to limitation with a clear conscience. You can't blame the world when you know you are its author. That's the true shift. That's the awakening. That's when you realize the money, the success, the health, the love, none of it is outside of you. You are the source. You are the creator. You are the beginning and the end of every experience you live. So I kept imagining. I kept persisting. I continued walking in the state of already having, already being, already fulfilled. And with every step I saw more evidence, more blessings, more manifestations, but most of all more clarity. The clarity that I didn't need to wait to feel rich. I could feel rich now. I didn't need to wait to be abundant. I could be abundant now. That feeling, that assumption was the cause. Everything else was the effect. I would often revisit the thought that started it all. I am already wealthy. Such a simple phrase, but inside it lived a world. Inside it lived freedom. Inside it lived a future that had become my present. And every time I repeated it, not as a hope but as a fact, I could feel the very cells in my body align with it. That's the power of assumption when it's no longer an effort, but a habit. When it's no longer something you do, but something you are. When people come to me now, confused, struggling, doubting, I offer them the same truth, not a system, not a strategy, just a question. Who are you being? What are you assuming right now about yourself, about your life, about your future? Because that assumption is the mold, and life will fill that mold with exact precision. No exceptions, no delays, only alignment. You can test this as I did. You can begin now with no proof and no permission. Just close your eyes and feel what it would feel like to already have it. And let that feeling be your dwelling place. Return to it as often as possible. Make it your internal residence, your inner temple, and do not leave it, no matter what the world throws at you. For what the world throws at you is only the old echo of past assumptions. Persist in the new, and the world must shift. I had to remind myself of this many times. There were moments when the evidence hadn't yet arrived, when the voices of doubt grew louder, when old habits wanted to pull me back. But I had seen too much. I had felt the power of the secret thought. I had witnessed it shape the world, and so I returned to it again and again, until it became me. Now, even when new desires arise, I no longer panic. I no longer fear or question. I simply assume. I move into the feeling of the wish fulfilled. I walk through life as if it's already done, and it always is, because that's the rhythm of the universe. That's the gift we've been given. And that's the secret I now share with you. Even now, as I reflect on how far I've come, not just financially but in consciousness, I feel a deep reverence for the power that lies dormant in so many. I see people rushing, struggling, endlessly striving for something they believe is outside of them, not realizing that they are the ones placing it outside. That was once me, until I turned within, until I dared to believe that I already had what I was searching for. That's when everything turned around. That's when money stopped being something I chased and became something I welcomed, something that responded to who I was, not what I did. When you move through the world with the awareness that your desires are already fulfilled, you step into a different timeline, one where life flows, not because it's easy, but because you're no longer resisting it with fear or doubt. Every step becomes a confirmation, every interaction a reflection, every moment another sign that you are now living in the effect of your inner cause. This is how I manifested the $1 million, not by trying to manipulate outer events, but by reshaping the inner man, by revising my concept of self. I no longer saw myself as someone hoping to be wealthy. I became the version of me who already was. Day by day, that version began to solidify, not just in my imagination, but in the very fabric of my reality. It wasn't an overnight shift, but it was an inevitable one. The more I assumed my wealth, the more I noticed how the world seemed to catch up, like a delayed broadcast of a program that had already aired. And that's exactly what it was. The show had already played in my mind. The external was just repeating it, scene by scene. I began to live in quiet certainty. I stopped talking about lack. I stopped rehearsing limitation. I stopped identifying with anything that did not match my desired end. And in doing so, I opened a new channel for reality to pour itself into my life. This wasn't about faking it. It was about faithfully feeling it. And that faith, though invisible, turned into the tangible. It turned into wealth. It turned into wealth. It turned into options. It turned into freedom. I learned to trust the process so deeply that I didn't need to question the how anymore. If I wanted something, I went straight to the end. I assumed it was done. I let the feeling of having it wash over me like sunlight. And then I let go. Not with detachment in the way most think, but with surrender. Surrendering the old story. Surrendering the doubt. Surrendering the false belief that life is hard and abundance is rare. That's the trap we fall into. Believing that what we want is scarce, far away, or only meant for others. But I tell you from experience, nothing is far. Nothing is out of reach. The only distance between you and your desire is the time it takes you to assume it is already yours. And once you do, once you hold that feeling and refuse to trade it for anything less, the bridge of incidents will begin to unfold. You will be moved, nudged, prompted. You will meet people you couldn't have planned for, be led to places you hadn't considered. But it will all feel natural, perfect, right on time. The $1 million did not drop from the sky. It came through channels the universe had prepared long before I even thought to ask. But those channels remained closed until I accepted the thought, until I allowed myself to believe in the new state. And when I did, the doors opened, one by one, effortlessly. Because the law doesn't fail. It can't. It operates with mathematical precision. And once you align with the law through your assumptions, the outcome is inevitable. This is the message I carry with me now. Not just to share stories of success, but to awaken others to their own power. To remind them that the thing they seek is already present, in potential, in imagination, in consciousness. And all they must do is say yes, not later, Not someday, now, this moment. Because your imagination is always creating. Your assumptions are always shaping your world. The only question is whether they are conscious or unconscious, intentional or accidental. And that is where your freedom lies, in choosing deliberately. The day I chose to assume wealth, I didn't just change my finances, I changed my world. My conversations changed, my posture changed, my energy changed. And soon everything around me followed. That is the magic of living from the end. It doesn't just get you what you want, it transforms you into the person who was always meant to receive it. So don't wait, don't wonder, don't hope. Decide, imagine, assume, become. That is the formula. That is the hidden code behind every so-called miracle. I no longer call them miracles. I call them the natural result of a mind aligned with its truth. And the truth is, you are powerful. You are divine. You are the one who decides what shows up in your world. So when I say I manifested $1 million using a single thought, understand this. The thought wasn't complicated. It wasn't poetic. It wasn't even dramatic. It was simple, direct, but it was felt with conviction. It was I am wealthy now. Not I want to be. Not I hope to be. Not someday I will be. It was immediate, present, final. I am. That sacred phrase, when spoken and felt in full sincerity, carries the weight of creation behind it. It draws everything needed to fulfill itself, because the I am is God's name in man. When you say I am, and attach any state to it, you call it into being. And once I claimed that state, and continued to return to it in thought, in meditation, in silent knowing, I began to think from it. I saw life through the lens of wealth, not the longing for wealth. And that subtle shift, though invisible, shifted the entire current of my life. Money came, yes, but so did peace, so did clarity, so did a deep and lasting sense of security, not because of the money, but because I had discovered the source of it all. I had discovered that all things proceed from consciousness. And consciousness is shaped by thought, by belief, by assumption, by the inner movement of awareness. No more did I need to hustle in fear or strive with anxiety. I worked, yes, but not from desperation. I took action, but only when inspired. No longer did I run to the outer world for evidence. I stopped needing signs, because the inner knowing became enough. The feeling became realer than what I saw with my eyes. That's the secret Neville spoke of. Feeling is the secret. Once you feel the reality of your wish fulfilled, you don't chase it anymore. It comes to you. It has no choice. The universe responds to who you are being, not what you are saying. You can affirm for hours, but if you don't change your self-concept, if you don't adopt the consciousness of the wish fulfilled, you're just rehearsing noise. But when you feel from the end, when you dwell in the state as if it were already true, you become magnetic. The outer world bends to meet the truth you've accepted within. That's what happened for me. I didn't just think the thought once and forget about it. I lived it. I wore it like a garment. I woke up each morning and reminded myself of who I now was. Not who I used to be. Not who I hoped to be. Who I am. I rehearsed the feeling until it took root, and then I let it grow. I didn't dig it up to check on it every day. I trusted that what I accepted in imagination would show itself in form, and it did. More beautifully than I could have ever planned. Money showed up in my life from expected and unexpected sources. New opportunities, new partnerships, sudden windfalls, profitable ideas, all of it flowed in with perfect timing. But more than that, my entire experience of life began to shift. I no longer felt like a victim of circumstance. I became the operant power. I realized that nothing and no one outside of me could stop what I had already accepted within. I had stepped into the God within, the I am, and from that place all things became possible. I tell you now, with all the sincerity of my soul, you can do the same. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need more education, better connections, or a lucky break. You need only the courage to assume that what you desire is already yours, to feel it now, to live from the end, to persist in that feeling until it hardens into fact. This is not fantasy. This is law, immutable, eternal, divine law. And once you work with it consciously, deliberately, faithfully, you become unstoppable. You become the vessel through which miracles are made manifest. You become the embodiment of your desires. And then your life becomes a testimony, not just to others, but to yourself. A confirmation that you are indeed the creator of your reality. It all begins with a thought, a single, quiet, powerful thought. I am. Once that thought, I am wealthy now, settled into my being, it became my default awareness. It no longer felt like an affirmation I had to repeat. It became the truth I lived by. I no longer entertained the possibility of lack. I no longer questioned if or when the money would come. I didn't wonder how it would show up. I simply knew it had already been done, and that the outer world was just catching up to the inner decree I had issued through assumption. You must understand, the world is not outside of you. It's within you. Every dollar, every opportunity, every breakthrough you seek, it already exists in your consciousness, waiting for you to unlock it by assuming its reality. I did not beg the universe. I didn't plead or try to convince anyone. I didn't wait for permission. I simply made a bold claim in the unseen, and lived as though it were so. And that single act of inner faith rewrote the script of my life. Everything changed not because I forced the world to bend, but because I no longer doubted. I stopped being double-minded. I stopped contradicting my desires with fear, worry, and disbelief. I became single-eyed. My inner vision was clear and unshakable, and because of that, manifestation became natural, effortless, even joyful. When Neville said that imagining creates reality, he meant it literally. What you consistently imagine with feeling must come to pass. It may not happen the moment you imagine it, but the seed is planted. And if you nurture it by continuing to live in the end, by mentally returning to that state over and over, it will grow. It must grow. Because your inner world is the source of your outer experience. So I did not sit around waiting for something to happen. I became the person to whom it had already happened. I walked differently. I spoke differently. I expected differently. Not from arrogance, but from faith. From trust in the divine law that governs all things. I stopped looking for signs, and started living like the sign had already been given. My very existence became the sign, and soon the world responded in kind. The $1 million showed up not because I desperately needed it, but because I no longer needed it to feel secure. I had already accepted that security within. The money simply mirrored what I had already become. It didn't change me. It revealed me. And once that revelation occurred, everything else began to follow suit. This is why I say to you now, don't chase the money. Don't chase the outcome. Chase the state. Live in the feeling of already having it, and let the outer world adjust itself to match your inner assumption, because it will. It has to. This is the divine order of things. Remember, what you are conscious of being, you become. If you are conscious of being broke, you cannot attract wealth. If you are conscious of being broke, you cannot attract wealth. If you are conscious of being rejected, you cannot manifest love. But the moment you become conscious of being wealthy, loved, chosen, your world will conform. Not immediately, perhaps, but inevitably. So let this be your secret thought. I am already what I seek. Not in some far-off future, but now, here, in this breath, in this moment. Claim it, feel it, live from it, and let the world reflect the magnificence of the assumption you have dared to believe. Because you are not here to wish, you are here to know. And in that knowing you create. When you create from knowing, from that deep conviction that what you have imagined is already yours, you enter into a state of harmony with the divine. No more inner conflict. No more back and forth between doubt and faith. Just a steady, silent certainty that begins to magnetize everything you need. The people, the circumstances, the timing. It all aligns without struggle. It comes to you because you have first gone to it in imagination. And your imagination, as Neville Goddard so beautifully taught, is God in action. Imagination is not idle daydreaming. It is the workshop of the soul. It is where your true reality is forged. And the clearer and more vivid your inner scenes become, the more rapidly they will express themselves in your outer world. When I began to imagine myself with $1 million, not vaguely but vividly, I saw it, touched it, counted it. I felt the weight of it in my hands, the thrill in my chest. I imagined conversations where others congratulated me. I imagined bank alerts and financial statements. I imagined peace. More importantly, I imagined myself from the end, not toward it. I didn't see myself hoping for the money or wishing it would come. I saw myself already in possession of it. That subtle distinction is everything. You must not see yourself as trying to become rich. You must see yourself as already rich, already there, already transformed. And then when you walk through the world, you carry that feeling as your base reality. You carry it even when your senses say otherwise. You carry it like a secret flame, and eventually the world will catch fire with it. This is not a performance. You don't have to fake it in front of others. You don't need to shout about your desire or explain it to anyone. This is a quiet revolution inside you. It is private, sacred, silent. It happens in your inner conversations, in your nightly visions, in those soft moments of stillness before you sleep. That's when you impress the subconscious. That's when your assumptions begin to take root. So I urge you tonight, when the world is quiet and your body is still, turn your attention inward. Begin to construct the world you wish to live in. Don't ask for it, assume it. Don't chase it. Claim it. See yourself already there. Feel the joy, the peace, the security. Saturate your mind with that reality until it becomes more real to you than anything you see outside. And then when you open your eyes, walk in that knowing. Move in that energy. Speak from that confidence. Because once you do, life will bend to meet you there. That's the miracle. That's the law. That's the secret thought. Not a chant, not a ritual, not a strategy, but a simple, powerful shift in awareness. I am. You don't become it. You already are it. And the moment you dare to feel that truth, even in the smallest degree, the transformation begins. The invisible becomes visible. The impossible becomes inevitable. I know this because I lived it. I am it. And now it's your turn. As you step into this awareness, you'll begin to notice how reality starts to rearrange itself subtly at first. Then suddenly, perhaps a call will come from someone you hadn't heard from in years with an opportunity. Maybe an unexpected check arrives, or a chance encounter leads to a breakthrough that sets everything in motion. These are not coincidences. These are reflections of your inner world echoing back to you. I did not need to know the method. I did not plot every step or micromanage the how. That part is not your job. Your only responsibility is to feel it real, to imagine it clearly, to accept it as done. The moment I understood this, the pressure lifted. I no longer looked at my bank account with anxiety. I no longer judged the present circumstances. I was too busy dwelling in the end, too busy enjoying my new reality. Mentally, emotionally, spiritually. I was too occupied with gratitude for what already was in my imagination to worry about what seemed to be missing in the physical. Then came the flood. Not all at once, but steadily. Momentum built. What once felt like a fantasy became my norm. The conversations changed. The way people responded to me changed. My energy drew to me exactly what I had embodied in my consciousness. Not because I was special, but because I finally lived the truth. Neville had always taught that imagining creates reality. You see, wealth isn't money. Wealth is a state. It's a frequency. And like all states, it must be occupied mentally before it can be expressed physically. That's what I did. I moved into the state of wealth within, and reality simply followed, because it has no choice but to follow. The world is yourself pushed out. You want to manifest $1 million? Then feel what it would be like to already have it. Not what you would feel. What you do feel right now in your imagination. Live in that space. Let your assumptions become so natural, so familiar, that anything outside of it begins to feel foreign. That's when the shift happens. When the outer world becomes the illusion and the inner world becomes your truth. Doubt may visit. Let it pass. Fear may knock. Do not invite it in. Return always to your inner vision. Persist. That's the key. Persist in the assumption. When you fall, return. When you waver, remember. When the old story calls, choose the new one. Over and over. Until the old version of you no longer has any power. You must claim your new identity, as if it's the only reality there is, because it is. Everything else is just shadow and echo. And once you live in that identity long enough, the world will bow to it. It has to. It's law. That is how I manifested $1 million. By using a single secret thought. I am already there. That one idea, believed completely and felt deeply, altered the course of my life. And it will alter yours too, if you dare to accept it. When you accept it, not as a hope, not as a future goal, but as a present fact, you begin to breathe differently. You carry yourself differently. Your energy begins to speak before your mouth ever opens. People feel it. The universe feels it. Because energy doesn't lie. You are no longer asking for something. You are no longer begging the universe to notice you. You are no longer hoping that one day your ship will come in. No, you are living as though the ship already docked, unloaded, and the treasures are yours to enjoy. This is the foundation of the secret. It's not a technique you do once and forget. It's a new way of being, a new orientation to life. And while the world may still show you remnants of the old state bank statements, bills lack limitation, you must respond not as the old version of yourself would, but as the rich you would, the abundant you, the confident, unshakable you, because your reactions matter. They are evidence of where you truly dwell in consciousness. The truth is this: I did not attract $1 million by accident. I did not stumble upon it. I became it first in mind, and the world had no choice but to mirror my inner state. I lived in the feeling of already being wealthy until my outer world caught up. This is the divine order of manifestation. Consciousness first, then form. Thought first, then thing. Imagination first, then experience. The most incredible part, once you understand this principle and see it work, even once, you'll never go back to the old way of living. The doubt begins to fade. The fear loses its grip. You'll walk through the world knowing you carry the key within you, not in a book, not in a mentor, not in some faraway place or future moment, but here now, within the temple of your imagination. This $1 million I manifested was not about the money. It was about the power. It was about remembering who I truly am, the operant power, the cause, the creator, and you are that too. You are not a victim of circumstance. You are not bound by history, family, location, or logic. You are bound only by the assumptions you refuse to revise. So revise them. Revise your identity. Revise your story. Begin to see yourself as the one who already has what they desire. Speak like it. Think like it. Feel like it. And persist, not because you need to force the universe, but because persistence is how we cement new assumptions into the subconscious. Your subconscious mind, your faithful servant, accepts whatever you persistently assume to be true, and it will express that truth automatically in your world. There's no need to manipulate, beg, or struggle. Just dwell in the assumption long enough, and it will solidify. The universe will rearrange itself quietly, invisibly, inevitably, to reflect your new truth. So I kept thinking that one sacred thought: I already am the one who has it. I let it saturate my being. I let it echo through every cell of my body. I repeated it not as a mantra to get something, but as a statement of identity. It became so natural, so second nature, that the idea of not having $1 million began to feel strange, out of place, like wearing someone else's clothes. My old beliefs about money, about struggle, about waiting for success, they began to dissolve in the presence of this one powerful assumption. I remember walking down the street one day, not $1 more in my bank account than the week before, and yet I felt completely different. The world looked different. The air felt different. People responded to me with a strange reverence, a respect I had not noticed before. Why? Because I had changed inwardly. I was no longer a man hoping for wealth. I was a man of wealth, and the world, being only a mirror, began to reflect it back. It started small, little financial windfalls here and there, opportunities that seemed to come from nowhere, a random gift, a business idea that turned into profit, a delayed payment that finally arrived. These things snowballed. The floodgates opened. But none of it would have happened if I had waited for proof before assuming the state. You cannot wait to see results before you believe. That is not how the law works. Belief is the cause. The result is the effect. The only belief that truly changes things is the one you embody. Not just say, not just write down, but feel in your bones. I was no longer pretending. I was not trying to manifest. I had stepped into the role fully. I had become the version of myself that lived this reality. The outer world simply played catch-up. That's the mystery Neville always emphasized. Dare to believe in the reality of your assumption and watch the world play its part relative to its fulfillment. I dared. I leapt. I stopped asking how. I stopped chasing signs. I stopped needing external validation. I accepted the end as real now, and the rest unfolded as a matter of divine law. I no longer needed to see it to believe it. I believed it, and so I saw it. This reversal of cause and effect is the cornerstone of all true manifestation. It defies logic, it breaks conventional thinking, and it liberates you from a life of waiting. Because once you understand that assumption hardens into fact, you don't need to beg or strive. You simply accept and persist in that acceptance. The riches came not as a reward, but as a natural expression of who I had become within. That's what most people miss. They think the money is the goal. It's not. The change in consciousness is the goal. Once you shift who you are in your inner world, the external wealth is merely a symptom. Just as a fever is the symptom of an inner imbalance, prosperity is the symptom of an inner harmony with abundance. You don't need to tell anyone. You don't need to prove it to anyone. Keep it sacred. Keep it private. Neville taught that your inner speech is the true cause of your life. So speak to yourself differently. Walk differently. Move differently. Not to convince anyone else, but to prove to yourself that you're no longer the version of you that used to struggle, worry, or wonder how it would happen. You're not trying anymore, you are. Let the old you die. Mourn it if you must, but bury it fully. For the new you, the rich, powerful, radiant you, has already taken its place. And from this new state, life begins to bow. Not because you manipulated it, but because you finally stopped resisting your true nature. It's a law. Immutable, impersonal, precise. You imagine and the world reflects. You assume and life conforms. You believe and the evidence appears. This isn't magic. It's not superstition. It's the divine design of reality. You were made in the image of the Creator, which means you are the creator of your world, your results, your wealth. I understood then that the secret thought which brought me $1 million was not complex, not hidden, not far from reach. It was simple. I am already what I desire to be. This thought, when held with conviction, reshaped the very structure of my reality. And I didn't need to repeat it endlessly out of fear. I spoke it once with feeling, and then I lived from it. That was enough. The rest was natural, inevitable. The movement of life responded to the seed I had planted in consciousness. Let me tell you something deeply important. The more I dwelt in that state, the less I cared about how it would come. I stopped watching the clock. I stopped tracking every event to see if it was leading to the money. Why? Because in my imagination I already had it. And someone who has does not chase. Someone who has is calm. They are grateful. They walk with ease. That's what I did. I would go to sleep at night not as a man dreaming of wealth, but as one falling asleep with wealth. I would imagine feeling the sheets of my luxurious bed in my $1 million home. I would feel the comfort of knowing everything I wanted was mine. Not just money, but freedom, choice, security, ease. I let these feelings be more real to me than anything the senses could report. I let them impress themselves upon my subconscious mind like a branding iron to leather. It worked. It always works. Not because I'm special, not because I'm lucky, but because the law of consciousness is no respecter of persons. It works the same for you, for me, for everyone. The only difference is in who dares to persist, who dares to assume the best of themselves and refuse to let go, even when the senses scream otherwise, who dares to believe in the unseen and let it become more real than the seen. You see, this one thought, I am already what I desire to be, isn't just a sentence. It's a new identity, a new frequency, a new spiritual address. And when you relocate to that inner address, life delivers the package to where you now dwell. Not where you used to be, not where you hope to be, but where you are. In feeling, in imagination, in consciousness. I walked with this inner conviction long before the first dollar arrived. And that's the true test, isn't it? Can you believe it when there is no outer evidence? Can you live from it when your bank account says otherwise? That's where most people turn back. They check their senses too early. They abandon the state before it has matured into fact. But I knew better. I had studied the teachings of Neville too deeply to make that mistake. I knew the outer world was simply a delayed reflection of the inner one. And so I stayed faithful. Not to what I saw, but to what I knew within. I remember days when doubt would try to sneak in, whispering things like, it's not working, or you're just fooling yourself. But I didn't argue. I didn't resist. I simply returned to my state. I returned to my throne. And there in silence I reaffirmed I am already the millionaire. Not becoming, not about to be, but already. Because in the world of imagination, time does not exist. There is only now. And if you can accept the desire as already fulfilled in the now, you collapse time and bring the fulfillment rushing into the present. The $1 million came. Yes. But more importantly, I came into alignment with who I truly am, a being of infinite power, a creator of my own experience, a master of assumption. That is worth far more than the money, because now I know if I lost it all tomorrow, I could do it again, and again, and again. Why? Because the source was never outside of me. It was always within. The money was not the power. I was the power. The thought was the gateway, and the feeling was the key. So I speak to you now, not as a man who merely received a miracle, but as one who discovered the law behind the miracle. And I tell you this with certainty. There is nothing you cannot be, do, or have, if you will dare to assume its reality and persist in that state. One thought, fully accepted, fully embodied, can remake your world. You need not wrestle with the world, nor strive to change people or conditions. All that is required of you is to inhabit the end, to live from the feeling that it is already so. I did not manifest $1 million by running after opportunity, begging for breaks, or clinging to desperate action. I manifested it because I finally stopped looking to the outside and looked within. I understood that the world was not happening to me, it was responding through me. The moment I truly grasped this, I no longer reacted to life. I commanded it, not through force, but through silent, inner knowing. There is great power in silence, in stillness, in unseen assumption. The world may call it foolish. It may mock your certainty in what it cannot see. Let it. Do not be moved. When you assume your desire is fulfilled and you feel it real, you've already set the wheels of creation into motion. The seed is planted, and though it may not sprout tomorrow, it must grow. Nature does not cheat the law, and neither does imagination. Whatever you accept as true, in the quiet chambers of your mind, must externalize in time. This is what I practiced, day and night. Not repetition without belief, not action without vision, but feeling as though it were already mine. And as I walked through life, I walked with it, talked with it, slept with it. I lived in a secret union with my assumption. And like all lovers truly united, what we created together was inevitable. A life of wealth, ease, and divine supply. The outer world began to move. People came forward. Opportunities arose. But I knew these were not the cause. They were the effect. The cause was the silent assumption I had married within. The cause was the one thought I refused to release. I am a millionaire. When that identity took root in my being, life had no choice but to mirror it. Not because of luck or chance, but because law cannot fail. I want you to feel the weight of that truth. Law cannot fail. Just as surely as a seed planted in fertile soil must yield its fruit, so must your inner assumption bear its outward result. This is not philosophy. It is the very architecture of reality. I did not create something out of nothing. I simply aligned with what already existed in potential. That $1 million was always there, waiting for me to tune myself to its frequency through thought, belief, and feeling. You see, imagination is not idle fancy. It is the workshop of creation, the divine womb in which all things are shaped. When I first imagined the life of a millionaire, it was not a fantasy. It was the beginning of manifestation. Each time I returned to that scene, feeling its truth, living within it, I was pressing the blueprint deeper into the subconscious mind. And the subconscious, being impersonal and infinitely obedient, did exactly what it was designed to do. It externalized what I impressed upon it. It made real what I felt to be real. People will ask, but how did the money come? Who gave it to you? And I tell them that is not the important part. That is just the shadow of what was first formed in light. The true source was the thought, the feeling, the inner knowing. Yes, someone offered me a business opportunity. Yes, a deal came through that brought great return. Yes, connections I never expected appeared. But these were not coincidences. They were orchestrations, reflections of the inner state I had chosen to embody. So I urge you, forget the outer steps. Forget trying to manipulate the pieces of the world like pawns on a chessboard. Go within, dwell there, assume the state of the wish fulfilled. Feel it so vividly that you lose sight of what is and become intoxicated with what must be. It is this drunkenness of belief that bends the world in your favor. It is the firm conviction, silent, unwavering, that draws all things unto itself, even when the senses scream otherwise. Remain loyal to your assumption. That is the great test. Can you hold fast to your inner vision when everything around you contradicts it? Can you stand still in the storm of doubt and say, "It is already done"? That is where the miracle germinates. In the darkness, in the silence, in your refusal to give life to anything other than your desired reality. I did not entertain two thoughts. I gave no energy to lack. I gave no voice to fear. I entertained only the truth I had chosen. I am already the one who possesses it. Each morning I woke up and felt the wealth in my bones. Each night I laid down not as a man hoping for change, but as one already changed. I had assumed the new identity, and therefore the old me had no place to live. I fed the state of abundance with my attention, with my speech, with my movement. I walked through stores knowing I could afford it all. Not with arrogance, but with quiet certainty. The world had not yet caught up, but in consciousness, I had already crossed the finish line. When the world finally did shift, it felt natural. It wasn't a shock. It wasn't an explosion. It was a gentle unfolding, like a flower that had been opening quietly all along, until one day you look and realize it's fully bloomed. The money arrived because I had already received it in consciousness. The bank balance changed because the state within me had changed long before. Life was only echoing back the declaration I had made within myself. This is who I am now. Change your conception of yourself and you will automatically change the world in which you live. That is exactly what happened. I changed how I saw myself. I no longer saw a struggler. I saw a master. I no longer saw lack. I saw limitless supply. And the world, being only myself pushed out, had to conform. I tell you, once this truth is grasped, truly grasped, not just intellectually, but felt in the marrow of your soul, you become unstoppable. The world cannot resist the one who lives in the end. It bows to him, rearranges itself for him, because he is no longer reacting to shadows, but creating from the light. I stopped chasing money. I stopped chasing validation. I stopped chasing validation. I stopped chasing anything. I became still. I became certain. I became that which I sought. And because I became it, it came to me. There is no secret ritual, no magic spell, no perfect timing outside of your own assumption. The only secret thought is the one you finally dare to believe in fully. The thought that aligns with your wish, already fulfilled. For me it was simple. I am already wealthy. I am already abundant. I am already in possession of all that I desire. This was not a mantra I chanted from desperation. This was a truth I wore like skin, and as I lived in it, the world mirrored it. Do you understand what this means? It means that even now, right now, you can begin anew. You can choose a new thought, one that matches your desired reality, and you can feel it into being. You can ignore the former things, the evidence of the senses, the circumstances that appear so fixed. They are not fixed. They are plastic to the will of imagination. Everything you now see was once only a thought believed in, and everything you wish to see already exists in the field of potential, waiting only for your assumption to give it birth. I didn't beg. I didn't force. I simply knew. And in that knowing, the walls of impossibility fell, the path opened, and the $1 million that once felt so distant became just another fact of life. Not because the money changed who I was, but because who I became brought the money forth.